Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about the 5 things that I'm most excited for in TBC. Now TBC hasn't been confirmed yet for TBC Classic, but there's been a lot of rumors about the release date and a lot of buzz around TBC in general, so I thought I'd make a video talking about TBC because it's something I'm really excited for. So let's start with number 5. The number 5 thing I'm excited for in TBC is going to be the removal of world buffs in raids that comes in patch 2.1 in TBC, and also the change so that elixirs kind of have like the offensive and the guardian system, meaning you can only have a couple elixirs up at a time, and most defensive elixirs are going to overwrite each other, so you pick one, and most offensive elixirs overwrite each other, so you have to pick one. And that's going to be a nice change because you get to pick like the best elixir for your character rather than, drinking every single possible potion that you can find that's going to improve your character's power. So that's really nice change. All in all, I think this will really shift a lot of the time you spend, for TBC. You're going to be enjoying the raids and spending time in the raids rather than doing crazy amounts of preparation for consumables. And you're still going to have to do a lot of preparation in terms of your gear and attunements, but those are going to be more permanent improvements you make to your character rather than investing a lot of gold into the temporary consumes like you do in Classic. Also important to mention, flasks are much cheaper in TBC than they were in Classic, so that's another great thing as well. So all in all, you're going to spend less time gold farming, less time prepping all your consumes, and more time to spend on your alts, more time to spend, maybe raiding more characters. All in all, I think it is a very exciting change. Number 4 is going to be the PvP system. Now, in Classic, you're familiar with the PvP system that basically is all time based, and it's really grindy to really get anything, whether it be from the Arathi and Warsong Gulch factions or, going through the honor system itself and trying to rank up to like rank 10 is where you generally start getting the first decent rewards, and the best stuff being at rank 12, 13, and 14, which take huge amounts of time investment. And for many players, I think it's just such an insane time investment that it just puts off them even getting started in PvP at all. So I think come TBC, you're going to have a system that's a lot more incremental. You're able to spend time in battlegrounds and start buying pieces, and it's going to be something where you can actually start playing battlegrounds and get a piece of gear, and you don't have to wait months or weeks of progress before you're able to start actually seeing rewards. So I think that'll be really nice to have a system that not only is more incremental and less huge time investments required to see any results, but also a system that is a little more rewarding to skill rather than just time investment. So that'll be really exciting. And then obviously that means the arena is out too, and the arena will be another avenue to play PvP. So that'll be really cool. So that was number 4. Number 3 on my list is going to be raid size changes. If you didn't know, in TBC, instead of having the 40-man raid size and the smaller 20-man size for kind of the support raids like ZG, come into TBC, you're going to have the kind of smaller raid size be 10 and the full raid size be 25. So for me personally, this is an amazing change because I found the Classic raids, there's just too many people. I think it'll be more enjoyable for pretty much all classes, all specs, across the board, because you're going to have more personal responsibility. You're going to have a bigger impact on the raid. Obviously, the smaller the raid is, the more impact you have. So if you're a healer, you're going to notice that your heals are getting sniped less. It's more important that you do a good job healing on a certain fight so that you don't run into trouble. Same thing as a DPSer. In Classic, sometimes it feels like you could just AFK the whole fight and nothing would happen. No one would even notice because there's just so many people, so many DPSers in the raid. However, come TBC, if you are, playing, especially in like the 10-mans for Karazhan and Zulaman, right? Every single DPS is going to end up mattering, and you can really be a big impact on those groups. But even in the 25-man raids, it's just a much smaller group. The guilds, I feel, are going to be more tight knit. You're going to get to know people better in a smaller environment. And it's just easier to maintain 25 people than 40. So while the 40-man raids are epic and huge and are cool in their own way, I think the 25 and 10-man raids are going to be really, really nice and a better option for most guilds. Number 2 on my list is going to be dungeons. Now, dungeons, this is the thing that I'm most nostalgic about. The dungeons are something that I really, really love about TBC. And we'll see when TBC comes out how the player base ends up playing them and if they end up just getting rolled over. However, back in TBC and on private servers, how the dungeons would work is in TBC you have these huge packs of sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7 enemies, and a lot of them have really nasty abilities, or for the casters especially, in the melee mobs hit really hard and can apply a lot of nasty debuffs. So generally speaking in TBC, CC is very important, and you're going to be communicating a lot with your group on how you're going to CC certain mobs. So no matter what your group composition is, you're going to have to try and make the most of what you can do to crowd control the enemies. So this means you're going to want to have, traps going out from your hunter. You want your rogue to sap. If your priest can shackle any undead, they're going to go ahead and shackle it. If even druids, if they can hibernate something, they're going to hibernate it. You could even pull out stuff like Scare Beast from Hunter. You're just going to do everything you can to try and reduce the incoming damage that these huge packs are going to be providing. And so it's just really cool how you end up having to, you mark everything, you make a plan. You generally have to be very careful with your pulls to pull stuff back to make sure you have enough space so that a warlock can fear without chain pulling other mobs. So all in all, I remember them being very challenging. They hit really hard, and you got to prepare. And especially the heroics, right? There's really difficult heroics too, like Shadow Labyrinth, and a lot of the Tempest Keep dungeons are really tough too. So we'll see how it turns out in TBC Classic, and if things are going to be a lot easier or if we roll over the dungeons. But I really do hope it still ends up in a situation where you have to do a lot of coordination to handle those dungeons, and I think they'll be a lot of fun. And the last thing is going to be class changes. This is the thing I'm most excited for. Now, I'm sure all of you guys might already know the things about your class that have improved, but I'm going to be mainly talking about the classes I like, just to give you an idea of how big these changes are and how they can really have really catastrophic impacts on how viable the character is and how fun it is to play, right? And I think a big one to start with is just Druid. Druid is a class that I haven't really touched in Classic, and that's because I feel it is just incomplete. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in playing Druid in Classic because I know in TBC they're just going to be so much better. It's really hard for me to want to play a Druid in Classic when I know that if I just wait till TBC comes out, they'll have Life Bloom, Tree of Life for healers, which I think are two of the most iconic Druid abilities that are both really cool. Turning into a tree to improve your healing, and Life Bloom is one of the coolest abilities ever made, in my opinion. So I'm really excited about. It just makes me want to play Resto Druid, whereas in Classic I'd have no interest in playing Resto Druid at all. And then when it comes to Feral, they get Lacerate, they get Mangle. All of them get Cyclone for PvP, which is huge. But even Bear goes from having so few abilities to having something like Lacerate that you can, a stacking bleed debuff that you can put on multiple enemies, and a huge single target burst from Mangle. You can use Mangle in cat form too. So all in all, I'm really excited for the class changes, and I just think it completely transforms something like Druid. Another example could be something like Shaman. Enhancement Shamans get Shamanistic Rage, which gives them the ability to regenerate mana, which is a huge issue in Classic. They go to dual wielding instead of using one two-hander, and Storm Strike's cooldown is reduced. I think it's cut in half to 10 seconds from 20. And I mean, it's just huge improvements. They give a buff to melee group that increases their damage, which gives more reason to want to use them. You've got if we switch over to Elemental, their lightning bolts can duplicate and send out an additional lightning bolt. They have this overload mechanic, which is really cool. And they provide this totem now that makes them really desirable. So Elemental Shaman, something that really struggled in Classic to try and find a spot in a raid, all of a sudden is now really something you want in your raid because they have such a good totem that gives crit and spell hit to caster groups. Going to Resto, you've got, they were already really good, but I mean, now add in Bloodlust for all three specs, and in your, not only do you have all these totems, now you have Bloodlust, you're just much more viable in terms of your damage. So across the board, a lot of specs got a lot of love. And then I guess the last one I'll mention is Arms Warrior. Arms Warrior is a spec I really like, and they are much better in TBC. They apply a debuff to the boss that increases physical damage taken by 4%. So you actually have reason to run an Arms Warrior. So, I mean, just across the board, so many great changes. There's so many more for classes that I didn't talk about, but these are the classes that I enjoy playing. So, let me know in the comments below not only what your favorite class changes are for TBC, but also, in general, overall, what are you excited for in TBC? What are the things, are you excited for the raids? Are you excited for the leveling, flying? Are you excited for the PvP challenges out in the open world, or, all of the fights you have for the different, primals? Let me know, guys, below what you're excited about for TBC, and thanks for watching.